Hello students, welcome back to your history class. Today we're going to study the short answer type questions and value based question, which is a 100-mark answer which comes for 4 marks. We are doing the chapter The Three Orders. This is the question and answer session. This week we are going to be doing question and answers of this chapter. So please pay attention, jot down your notes while we are conversing. Question 1, what were the causes of the rise of feudalism? Or you can even say what were the circumstances that led to the establishment of feudalism? Okay, and the answer in 100 words, that means you will just be putting in like maximum 4 points in this. Okay, so you will always start with an introduction. So you will say, after the fall of the Roman Empire, the barbaric types like the Huns, the Gauls, the Vandals, the Magyars, and the Muslims, they all invaded Europe. And this gave a fatal blow to the commerce and industry, and the economic condition of the people became very, very miserable. Under these circumstances, the king did not have enough could not take enough taxes from people, and the king had nothing to give the nobles except pieces of land. And so the king offered them pieces of land, that is fiefs, and conferred to them and gave them the rights to make laws and to decide the cases, to mint their own coins, to impose taxes, and even maintain their own armed forces. These feudal lords further distributed the lands to their own vassals. So this was the entire thing that, after the invasion, after the fall of the Roman Empire, lots of invasions took place, and the king did not have any, it led to a decline in the trade and commerce, and people did not have money. The king could not take taxes. So what would he give the nobles? So he decided that I'll give land to the nobles, and I will give them the right to make laws on that land, to have their own money, to give them lots and lots of power, and even let them keep an army. And in return, they have to lend me that army to fight and protect the kingdom. And what did these lords do? They further distributed lands to their own vassals. On the other hand, the property of the people did not remain safe and secure because of the invasions of the barbaric tribes. At the same time, even if the king has given the land, the other tribes were still invading them. And so these people, they were looted, and their lives were destroyed, properties were destroyed, chaos and disorder was created. Under these circumstances, the people themselves accepted the overlordship of the nobles, who could guarantee their safety and security. So, under such conditions, people themselves started to accept the lords. Okay, that this landlord is going to protect me, so let me stay under him. Then rather, if I don't stay with him, the barbaric tribes are going to come and attack, and they're going to kill us. So it's better to stay safe. So they started to accept the lordship, okay, who would guarantee them their safety and security. In this way, feudalism did not come into existence by the decrees issued by the kings, but the circumstances bound by the kings. So it did not come into existence because of the decrees issued by the kings, but it came to existence because of the circumstances that that were surrounded around the kings, the lords, and the common people together, and it worked because of the basis of protection and service, rights and duties. Okay. Next question is, trace the main changes in the European society under the feudal system, and then you have to compare them with the medieval Rajput society. So first we look at this question very clearly. These kind of questions, they have two parts to them. Trace the main changes, number one, and second is compare. So first we'll trace the changes. Feudalism brought many changes in the European society. There was a hierarchy of noblemen, from knights to the kings. They rendered military help to their overlords in time of need and surrendered a part of their income. The overlords gave them land, but none of the lords cultivated the land on their own, but they had many peasants under them who cultivated the land. While the lords led a life of ease and pleasure, the peasants led a miserable life. Some of them, who were called the serfs, they were even bound with the land. However, with the development of trade and commerce, emerged a new class, the middle class, and this led to the downfall of feudalism. Next question, next part of this question, comparing it with the medieval society. In India, the Rajput society resembles very much like the European feudalist society because, firstly, it also had hierarchy of noblemen, even if Rajput kingdoms, who were almost independent and pledged loyalty to their immediate lords. Secondly, like the European knights, fighting was the main occupation of the Rajput chief. They took keen interest in the acts of chivalry. Thirdly, the Rajput chiefs also gave military assistance to the overlords in times of need. Fourthly, the peasants were fully exploited by the nobles. And lastly, there was lack of unity in both the cases, and wars and mutual conflicts were the order of the day. So there was a lot of similarity, so you have to point out the similarities over here. Next question is, who were feudal lords? And mention the categories into which they were divided. What were their main functions? What was the main feature of the relation with the serfs? So there are too many parts of this question. So when you're answering such questions, you should go one question at a time and make sure they're interlinked together, the answer. Now, during the Middle Ages, the fief holders or the land holders were often called the feudal lords. These lords looked after the land put under their charge, and again, they were responsible for establishing law and order within their areas. These lords were of various categories, which ranged from top to bottom in the following way. On the top, we had king, then there were dukes and earls, then there were barons, and then there were knights. So we've covered two questions right now. We spoke about who were feudal lords, and we've even given the categories into which they were divided. Now we go to the main functions. The main functions of these lords were to owe allegiance to their overlords, to serve them, and in time of need, to help them with both money as well as power. They distributed land to the lower lords, and in return they secured their military support and allegiance. They acted as a judge and decided the cases as they desired. They protected the people of their areas from any attack. Now, what was the relation with them? With the serfs. Now, these lords themselves did not cultivate the land, and so they were totally dependent on the peasants for this respect. It were they who cultivated their lands, built their houses, repaired their roads, and did all the minor jobs. So this was the relation. So this is how you answer such a question which has many parts to it, and you answer it in one flow. Next, describe the position of serfs under feudalism. Okay, so now there are three categories of peasants, and we're going to talk of all three here. So under the feudal system, there were three categories of peasants. One more thing, this question can be asked in many more forms, like discuss the condition of the peasants in the Europe during the Middle Ages. What were the different categories of peasants in the feudal society? How were they related to the god? So different ways, but answer would remain the same. So under the feudal system, there were three categories of peasants: freeholders, villeins, and serfs. Freeholders, that is the first category, they formed the first category. They received land from the lords and they paid taxes to them, but they did not work for their lords. Okay, these were the freeholders. Next was villains. They formed the second category of peasants, and they had to give a part of their produce to their lords and also had to work on the lord's field for a fixed number of days. For the rest of the period, they were free to work in their old fields which they had received from the Lord. So they were given a piece of land and they had to share whatever they grew on that piece of land. There was some amount which was decided and that had to be shared. And there was some fixed amount of days which were decided that so many days you will work on my land. And those days they had to work, the other days they were free. Serfs. They were the lowest category of peasants. They were the most numerous in the feudal society. That means they were the most populated, maximum number of peasants were serfs. These serfs suffered from many restrictions. They had been guaranteed some land from their lords, yet they were tied to it. That means they could not change their masters until the land changed hands. They had not only to work on the fields of their lords and also give them a part of the produce they have on their land, but they also had to perform small jobs like building or repairing their houses, making roads, repair work. They could and they could not ask for any payment in return of these services. So these services were like forced labor, and they had to do it forcibly, and that too without any payment. Okay. Question 5. Why is it uncomplimentary to call a period, a society, or its way of life a feudalistic? Why is feudalistic considered uncomplimentary today? So today it is considered uncomplimentary to call any society or its way of life as feudalistic because feudalistic system subsequently proved a great curse upon the mankind. Now, in these two lines, actually your answer is complete. It's a 4-mark answer. So you have to explain why was feudalist. So another question that can also come is why was the feudalistic system proved to be a curse on the mankind? So number 1 is peace and order are essential for the modern society as it cannot prosper under the fear of constant wars and internal confusion. Cultural progress and development of trade and commerce also depend on the proper maintenance of law and order. All this was not possible under the feudalistic structure where lords were always looking for an opportunity to fight with one another. Number 2, the feudalistic society was divided into two main classes, feudal lords and numerous peasants. The peasants were forced to lead a miserable life. Hence, a system that survived from the exploitation of the majority of its people by the few cannot be deemed as justified. Number 3, the modern age is an age of equality, where all the classes of people are granted equal rights, while the feudal system depended on discrimination and injustice towards the common man. Under feudalism, while a few people enjoyed numerous privileges, majority of them were denied even the minimum right to live. Exploitation was the basis of the feudalistic society. This is number 4. Exploitation was the basis of feudalistic society. Peasants and serfs were exposed to worse tyranny of forced labor, which is contrary to the modern concept of law. It is due to all these reasons that no society would like to call itself feudalistic. Next, question 6. Write a short note on the manor system. The medieval life centered around the manor house. The village farm itself was called the manor. It varied in size from place to place, but it was generally 300 to 500 acres in area. Each manor was self-dependent within itself. It consisted of a vast, large farm, pasture area, common woods, workshops, huts, and a chapel. The peasants worked on the timber to build houses. In the workshop, different artisans such as carpenters, blacksmiths, weavers, etc. worked. In the huts lived the peasants and the artisans, while in the chapel the monks taught and preached. The manor house, where the lord or the manor lived, was situated in the center of the manor. It was generally made of stone and was built like a castle with a moat full of water around it and a drawbridge which could be pulled up in case of an enemy attack, while all the inhabitants of the manor took refuge in the manor house in case of an attack. The lord of the manor lived luxuriously while the common people lived very frugally. They usually lived in a single room where the whole family slept on the earth floor or beds of straw and hay. Now, this is a value-based question. This is something that you are going to attempt and write, and I will discuss the answer with you all next time. There are many parts to this question, so please understand it very clearly. How would you have spent most of your time in feudal days if you had been any of the following? Here you are not selecting. Here you're going to write how would you spend your day if you were a knight, if you were a serf, if you were the lord of the manor, if you were a free man, and if you were a monk. You're going to talk about all 5 of the options. You will imagine yourself and you will think of what we know about the feudal society, and you will apply yourself, you will imagine yourself in that position and write at least 7 to 8 lines for each of it. So this I end today's class. Next class we start with this question and then we move further. Stay home, stay safe, take care and keep learning. Thank you.